Are we live? It says we're live. Is that actually the case? Oh, there it goes. It's up on YouTube. My Rumble's still goofing around with the intro, but that'll fix itself soon. Yeah, we'll roll with this. Hope everybody's having a good day. Whoa. Let's get ready. All right, we'll jump right into it today. Make sure you guys are dropping a like. Make sure you guys are dropping a like, sharing. Share it with your family, your friends, your cousins, your extended family. I don't know about your dog, but you know, if he's interested in the daily news, go ahead and put it on for him as well, or her. We don't discriminate against the dogs here. But yeah, go ahead and share it. Click that subscribe button on YouTube, follow button on Rumble. Share. You can clip now on Rumble, I believe. You can always clip on YouTube. I'd appreciate that. If you see anything worth saving, worth further distributing, stuff like that, go ahead and do that. It'd help me out a lot. So I guess we'll start it. Today is Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. This is episode number 43 of Addressing the Issues. Figured I'd start you guys off with a little story from this weekend. I got to go out, explore Florida, explore lots of parts of Florida, but something I noticed, I was at Walmart, had to stop and grab a few things while I was on these journeys. And I noticed something a little strange, something I've never noticed before. But at the Walmart cosmetics section, there was a checkout. Obviously, people have been noticing the glassed off shelves at Walmart. That's been a recent... Is this thing even going? There it goes. Okay. The glassed off shelves at Walmart, they've been gaining popularity, I guess, with more and more unsatisfactory customers. But there was a checkout before you could leave the cosmetics section. I thought that was absolutely crazy. You can't even buy makeup normally at a Walmart nowadays without having to check out before you leave the section, pay for it. There was the obvious, or not obvious, but the, security pylons that ring if you left without paying for something. I wasn't in there, but I noticed that there were people shopping, and it was just something really Orwellian I noticed. I can't believe that it's come to this point in America where you have to have security for the Walmart cosmetics section, but that seems to be where we're at these days. It's really unfortunate. Obviously, they used to have the jewelry section, I guess they still do, that you have to check out before you leave, along with the electronics section. But now they've added the cosmetics into that list of, I guess, secure areas of Walmart. It's kind of crazy to me. But, like I said, that's where we're at. I misspoke yesterday. It seems like Florida is not going to avoid winter. Winter is coming, and it's going to be coming very soon. As soon as I signed off yesterday, I saw a model depicting snow in Tampa Bay. Temperatures into the low 30s in South Florida. Doesn't seem like you're going to be able to escape here. And we're going to probably experience the average week or so of winter. So wish us luck. Some of us didn't pack our winter weather clothes on our annual trip from New York. We'll be wearing fur coats and Adidas sweatpants. So And a little update on Winter Storm Fern. Winter Storm Fern has now 86 confirmed casualties, confirmed fatalities, and 490,000 still without power as we're sitting here. So, if you did prepare, I guess be happy, because apparently some people didn't. And likely the people who are still without power were not prepared for that to be the case. Hopefully they were, but normally 2 days later you expect your power to be restored, and 490,000 Americans still do not have that luxury. In another story today, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists have moved the Doomsday Clock to 85 seconds to midnight, the closest the world has ever been to midnight. This is down from 89 seconds last year. It cites trends such as nuclear risk, climate change, artificial intelligence, biosecurity, and the rise of nationalistic autocracies. Of course, the United States and Russia are the boogeymen in the report, stating that they need to resume dialogue to limit nuclear production. Yet China is not addressed in this issue, the nation who is most actively growing its nuclear arsenal today. China is only mentioned when discussing the use of artificial intelligence of nuclear arsenal command and control systems, along with the US and Russia. I think this is possibly due to China, according to some experts, are currently at the forefront of artificial intelligence development with their DeepSeek AI. The United States is also mentioned as a cause of climate change due to President Trump's war on renewable energy. I think it was funny that China is not mentioned, producing 26% of the world's carbon emissions, over double the United States. But of course, the United States is listed as the boogeyman in the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. I think it's unfair to the United States and overly fair on China, given that they produce more carbon emissions, yet we are the ones who are responsible for climate change. They produce more nuclear weapons, yet we are the ones responsible for increasing nuclear weapon production. We aren't even the number one offender, yet we are the ones cited. It's rather interesting. It feels like a hit piece on the United States. But what can you expect from one of those non-governmental organizations? That's all they seem to do, is trash the United States, worship China. Even if it's a little contrary to what's actually going on in the world. Thought I'd throw that in there. Some people count on the Doomsday Clock as a source for the end of the world. Doesn't seem too reliable given how they calculate that. Who they pick as the bad people, who they pick as the good people. But some people still use that as the gospel. They use that to determine how close we are to the end of the world. I wouldn't use that. I'd just use life, use your window. If you see a second sun coming up over the horizon, you just know it's over. I guess in our main story today, last night while agitators were harassing federal agents in another hotel in Minneapolis, I guess it was in Minnesota, the Minnesota State Police tested the Long-Range Acoustics Device, or LRAD, on the agitators. The test sent people scurrying and running from the front line with police. I'm wondering, did they really hit people with what President Trump eloquently called the discombobulator? But there's no way that Minnesota State Police had access to this the entire time and refused to use it until now. until Tom Homan had to have meetings with Mayor Frey and Governor Walz. This comes alongside claims in the media that Chief Bovino was demoted and relieved of duties for Tom Homan, and that the job status for Kristi Noem was unclear. I think I said yesterday, this isn't the time to back down, but to double down, as this is the victory these insurrectionists want, and a huge victory for the Trump Always Chickens Out Club. I'd ask, why aren't we seeing the same fate for Pam Bondi? She said that she would get to the bottom of the funders of these insurrection groups and have them arrested. We haven't even seen the people who did the church insurrection charged. In fact, they were arrested and released from prison a few days ago. Don Lemon was never charged for the same crimes. And she's still sitting around, slow walking the release of the Epstein files, which were supposed to be released in full over a month ago, yet we still have roughly 1% in the public domain. I would say send her packing. Instead, I wouldn't have her sitting around doing nothing, getting nothing done. At least the other two, Bovino and Noem, are trying at something. Pam Bondi seems to have a black hole for a desk. But there's a long-time phrase that prosecutors could indict a ham sandwich. Pam Bondi better be making a pretty damn good ham sandwich as to the reason she's still around the White House. Someone needs to report on that. Is Pam Bondi making ham sandwiches for these executive meetings? Maybe that's the only reason she's still there. She's going around, what do you want? White or whole wheat, Mr. Rubio? Mr. President, do you want your crust on or off today? I mean, there's no other reason. She can't indict a ham sandwich. She better make a darn good one. And the bad press on the people who are fighting against a woke mob that is funded by these dark money organizations. The bad press should be on the Department of Justice. They cannot seem to secure these indictments nor figure out the ringleaders of this dark money. It's an organization that's still funding a insurrection in a U.S. city, yet we have no arrests of them after they have been pledged to us, promised, if you want to say that. President Trump said that we were going to have deep state arrest, yet we still have zero of the sort. The deep state, is going to be back in full force come November. They're going to have majorities in the House. They're going to have majorities in the Senate too at this rate. And there's going to be nobody to blame but the impotent Department of Justice division. And honestly, the White House, the president lacking the assertion of authority over the riots in this country, the insurrection we're dealing with. And I guess the representatives and senators themselves will be at fault as well. We haven't passed the SAVE Act. We'll go into it in a minute, but we're on the verge of another government shutdown. But today, the White House released a statement with 4 demands for Minnesota, which are as follows. 1, turn over all incarcerated or active warrant criminal illegal aliens for immediate deportation. 2, transfer all criminal illegal aliens arrested by state and local police. 3, assist federal authorities in detaining criminal illegal aliens wanted for crimes. 4, Democrats must work with the federal government in the rapid removal of all criminal illegal aliens. How about 5? Get the insurrectionists off the street, or I'm sending in the military to lock them up until the operation is over and order is restored in my country. I think that would be a good 5th point to include. Former special operations soldiers have chimed in that these groups are using the same insurgency tactics that the United States fought against in the global war on terror, using spotters, joint communications, salute-style reporting, meaning size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment of federal vehicles, and a population that's okay with being deceased in the end if they get their way. I think we talked about that yesterday. I'll read you the full post because it is jarring and, most people don't truly know what we're up against. So Eric Schwalm, retired Green Beret, says, as a former Special Forces warrant officer with multiple rotations running counterinsurgency ops, both hunting insurgents and trying to separate them from sympathetic populations, I've seen organized resistance up close. From Anbar to Helmand, the pattern is familiar. Spotters, cutouts, dead drops, or modern equivalents. Disciplined comms, role specialization, and a willingness to absorb casualties while bleeding the stronger force slowly. What's unfolding in Minneapolis right now isn't protest. It's low-level insurgency infrastructure built by people who've clearly studied the playbook. Signal groups at 1,000-member cap per zone, dedicated roles, mobile chasers, plate checkers logging vehicle data into shared databases, 24/7 dispatch nodes vectoring assets, salute-style reporting, like I said, size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment, unsuspected federal vehicles, daily chat rotations and time deletions to frustrate forensic recovery, vetting processes for new joiners, mutual aid from sympathetic locals, teachers providing cover, possible police department tip-offs on license plate lookups, home-based coordination points, rapid escalation from observation to physical obstruction or worse. This isn't spontaneous outrage. This is C2, command and control with redundancy, OPSEC, hygiene, operational security hygiene, and task organization that would make a Special Forces team sergeant nod in recognition. Replace ICE agents with occupying coalition forces, and the structure maps almost one-to-one with early-stage urban cells we hunted in the mid-2000s. The most sobering part, it's domestic. Funded, trained somewhere, and directed by people who live in the same country they're trying to paralyze law enforcement in. When your own citizens build and operate this level of parallel intelligence and rapid response network against federal officers, complete with doxing, vehicle pursuits, and harassment that's already turned lethal, you're no longer dealing with civil disobedience. You're facing a distributed resistance that's learned the lessons of successful insurgencies. Stay below the kinetic threshold most of the time, force overreaction when possible, maintain popular support through narrative, and never present a single center of gravity. I spent years training partner forces to dismantle exactly this kind of apparatus. Now pieces of it are standing up in American cities, enabled by elements of local government and civil society that should keep every thinking American awake at night. Not because I want escalation, but because history shows these things don't de-escalate on their own once the infrastructure exists and the cadre believe they're winning the information war. We either recognize what we're actually looking at or we pretend it's still just activism until these structures harden and spread. Your call, America, but from where I sit, this isn't January 2026 politics anymore. It's phase one of something we spent decades trying to keep off our own soil. I'll go ahead and repost that. But don't take it from me. Take it from a former Green Beret who's dealt with this in Afghanistan and Iraq. There's obviously a reason he would post this. He's lived similar experiences and he's seeing them in his own cities. They don't have these, signal chats that are deleted and remade every day for no reason. They don't provoke an attempt to escalate for absolutely no reason. Like we discussed yesterday, they do want a socialist revolution, and they are okay with whatever cost, whether it be life, liberty, or property, to make it happen. This isn't a normal thing. There are people coming from across the country to contribute to this insurrection, and money is coming in from who knows where at this point. to keep them there, keep them paid, and them to continue to provoke federal police. Every day, that is spent waiting, this group gets bigger, they get more press, and through that, more sympathy from the public that is too dumb, too indoctrinated to understand, what's actually happening in an American city. I honestly think this goes one of three ways. You let them slowly develop this into a civil war. 2, you quash it as precisely as possible, cutting their funding and therefore resources, and they slowly all return back to their normal lives. Or 3, you quash it with overwhelming force and just hope when they gain power in the next 3 years, there isn't retribution. I would argue number 2 is the best solution. That requires a competent Department of Justice that can cut funding and indict these people that are allowing this to continue, and a Congress that does not allow illegal immigrants to continue voting these leaders into power through the SAVE Act. No matter how you look at it, something needs to be done, and backing down will just prove that this can be done in other sanctuary states, other sanctuary cities throughout our country. I think I said yesterday, it's time to double down. I've said it again today, but it's time to act. You can't let this grow into a civil war, especially if what seems to be on the horizon in the Middle East is going to take place. You can't fight a two-front war, one inside your country and one halfway across the world. But we'll get to that, what's going on there, in a few minutes. I'll be at the end of today's episode. But Senator John Fetterman also released a statement today on X reading, POTUS, real Donald Trump, I make a direct appeal to immediately fire Secretary Noem. Those are them being tagged, sorry. Americans have died. She is betraying DHS's core mission and trashing your border security legacy. Do not make the mistake President Biden made for not firing a grossly incompetent DHS secretary. That was his statement. Fetterman, I one-up you and offer that he fires Pam Bondi at the same time. The issue is, once they're going to make these changes, it's too late to swing back popular opinion by the midterms. I argue, yes, this is something that should be done. Both of them probably should be fired. But no matter what happens, Republicans are going to be hosed in the midterms because nothing is getting done. And part of that falls on representatives, senators, for not passing the SAVE Act, not nuking the filibuster in the Senate, and not passing policies that actually will benefit Americans. We're seeing not much done in the realm of the affordability crisis. We're not seeing taxes cut due to tariffs. We're not codifying any of the Doge cuts that have allowed our money to be leaked out across the world. But the imminent shutdown come Friday is not going to be a good look for them either. Twice allowing Democrats to shut down the government over funding allocation by refusing to get rid of an honestly silly procedural vote that's going to be trashed when Democrats take power during the next term, during the next year. We're less than a year out. That's entirely on the representatives and senators of the Republican Party. We get that you want to mean well by refusing to get rid of this silly procedural vote. But you also have to consider that the other side of the aisle isn't going to care about your well-meaning theatrics. They're just going to get rid of it. And all this grandstanding over the filibuster vote is going to be thrown out in likely 48 hours. I'll guess right now it'll be 48 hours before the Democrats get rid of it once they take power. But I'm also not going to buy into this mainstream media narrative that's going around that ICE officers are losing morale either. Just last night, they were seen in the window of their hotel drinking beers. They actually capped off the night with mooning the crowd of agitators. That's on the internet. You can find that. It's hilarious. But leftists are currently protesting outside of the office of Tim Walz that he supposedly gave concessions for ICE in his meetings with Tom Homan. So I wouldn't exactly trust the mainstream media's narrative that ICE is being forced to back down either. But I also would argue, for the sake of law and order, that they aren't doing enough. They aren't getting rid of these agitators as well. That's obviously not ICE's duty. That would be the FBI. So maybe Pam and Cash can get on that, get back to law and order in this country. You know, just today, another person is in critical condition in Arizona after being shot in an incident in Pima County with U.S. Border Patrol. As of right now, the circumstances that led to this incident are not yet clear, yet I'm sure they will be used as a reason Minneapolis becomes even more unruly tonight, because that's just how this group works. They don't care about reality. They care about their cause. They seem to just care about ensuring that their socialist agenda is pushed and tearing down the society that Americans built before them. They have no respect. They have no morals. All they do is take these foreign dollars and tear up their own country with it. It's disgusting. That's where we're at with Minnesota, Minneapolis. I think it's likely to heat up again tonight because somebody else got shot. Now, of course, it's not going to be pushed if the person was doing something, or that the person was doing something bad, illegal, breaking the law, even being an illegal immigrant. They're going to just push the fact that somebody was shot, somebody was injured by federal law enforcement, to expand on this idea that it needs to be abolished, and that they have these rights to disrupt commerce, disrupt other people's lives, disrupt churches, and tear down buildings, burn down buildings, tear up private businesses, attack officers, dox them, dox their families. Of course, that's the only thing that they get out of this. It's what they want. It's what these insurrectionists want. But it seems like this will be a story that we'll continue to cover in the upcoming days. In our final story today, it seems that Iran is heating up. Today, U.S. drones were seen flying around the Persian Gulf. Also, Iranian drones were seen loitering the entrance of the Persian Gulf, supposedly expecting the arrival of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group. Journalists, news sources in the region, the Times of Israel, has already claimed in a report that the U.S. may strike Iran in the coming days. And Farzan Nadimi, a senior fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, has assessed that the likelihood of U.S. strikes on Iran is very high due to the nature of the military buildup in the Persian Gulf. In the last 24 hours, the Iranian army was performing exercises in schools So don't be surprised. Don't get up in arms. If a school gets hit, they're being used as bases already. Being used as bases for regime forces, and therefore they're likely going to be propagandized on you as attacks on schools if strikes are to occur. I don't get our love as a nation for venturing into the Middle East for regime change. It's never worked out. We tried Afghanistan, and the Taliban now run the country. We've tried in Syria. Now a person who's been affiliated with both Al-Qaeda in Iraq and ISIS in Syria is in charge. And Iraq was left even more so as a failed state, and it deepened its ties with Iran and our intervention there, our regime change there. We really have no business over there. And when we go intervene, it gets more and more messed up every time. And I have absolutely no reason to believe that somehow and for some reason it's going to work out any better this time than at any time before. We actually tried it once before in Iran. And we got the regime that's currently in power. The regime that's in power now that we once again want to do regime change on. Now we want to try it again. Assuming this pattern continues, I can't fathom what will take power next. I can't imagine an even worse Iran than we're dealing with. But whatever regime's in power in Iran, whatever happens there, and supposedly soon, supposedly highly likely, it's a huge win for the military-industrial complex. So that's where we're at with that. Obviously, myself, probably every one of my viewers, don't hope that we go over into Iran, go over and likely mess the situation up even worse than it already is. Yet that seems, like I said, highly likely, a matter of days. It could extend. Obviously, we've seen the Venezuela thing that was, I believe, signed into effect on or around Christmas, and it took a little over a week for conditions to be right. I think that there's a possibility that, it's already been decided we're going to do it, and we're just waiting on the right conditions, the right day to likely send strategic B-2 bombers around the world in another Operation Midnight Hammer style attack, just to, I guess, further eliminate their nuclear program. Apparently they had moved some of these nuclear assets before the initial strike and have tried to recover them afterwards. So we're going to see if it works out this time. Maybe we go and get it all destroyed. Maybe we completely eliminate their nuclear capability. I doubt it. I bet they're still building it up, and I bet they're hiding it better than they did before because they saw how it worked out last time. They are a nuclear threshold nation. I don't know that they have the rocket technology to strike continental U.S. However, that seems to not matter. We're interested in regime change. We will go do regime change. That's just the way it is. That's all I have for you today. I'm not seeing anybody's comments, chats, or whatnot. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Drop a like if you enjoyed today. Go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, follow on Rumble. Share this if you think it'd be useful for anybody else. Obviously, the live streams are up forever afterwards, at least hopefully. Comment if there's any other changes you'd like to see me make to the format of these. Anything I can do better. Anything you notice that could be better, just let me know. I'll definitely consider it. Probably try and work on it. At least try it once. If you do want to financially support me, there's an option on Rumble. It's a little $sign. You can do a one-time donation, monthly donation, subscribe. And also, I'm going to try and start, responding to super chats. If anybody does any of those, it'll be like a little 5-minute plus segment at the end. I'll focus a lot of brain power in those and hopefully answer whatever questions you guys want answered. I know it's hard to keep up with all the stuff that's going on these days, especially given lots of people work real jobs. They're not sitting here scraping for information for hours on end daily, I guess, like myself. But I do intend to, keep my viewers informed, keep them in the loop on exactly what's going on, what's likely to happen, what is happening, stuff like that. So I'd appreciate that. And I guess mostly, number one thing, I appreciate your viewership. You guys have really been showing out this week, so I thoroughly appreciate that. And hopefully it'll draw in more and more people. We'll have more and more fun, more and more people to chat with. That's the goal. Just hanging out with you guys. I think I'll have a better game plan over the next week or so of programming tomorrow. I've been thinking about how I want to do both the Olympic special and the Ryan Ruth sentencing situation. That's a rather interesting story, and I think it'll have a special in and of itself. I don't think people know exactly who Ryan Ruth was, who he was working with, and all these strange connections he has. So I'm probably going to go to his sentencing, I believe is on, I want to say Tuesday of next week. Let me make sure that's right. It should be, let's see. No, Wednesday of next week. So that'll be then. I'll have a little special after that where I'll dive deeper than what the mainstream media is willing to talk about. But he's a strange individual. So we'll have, 2 specials in the upcoming days. I'll figure those out. But beyond that, I hope you guys enjoyed. So I'll sign off here. To all my people on the East Coast, I hope you get home safe. To my people further west, I hope you finish up your workday strong and get home safe as well. I'll see you guys again tomorrow, live, hopefully 4:45 Eastern time. Been a little late the past 2 days, but it's been a lot going on, so I'll try and keep you informed with all that, even if it is 5 minutes late 2 days in a row. Anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.